Greetings, YouTubians, and welcome back to Wayne's Sharp World, where today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new knife. This here is the Toor Knives Merchant. Now, before I go any further into this review, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you like what you see, please do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, follow along, and I will continue to bring you the content. And I also have to note that today's episode is brought to you by DLT Trading. Check them out for all of your knives and EDC needs. Now, this knife right here is one of the more interesting knives I think I'm going to look at this year, and there's a lot of exciting things about it. We're going to get into that, but first we're going to take a look at some overall specs on this knife. We have an overall length of 7.85 inches with a blade length coming in at 3.4 inches. We have a blade width of right about 1 inch down at the bottom here, just before the thumb stud. I always try and measure the thickest part of the knife that is fully usable, so that's about what we have right there, is that 1 inch. We have a blade thickness of 0.125 inches with a blade material of S35 VN, drop point style blade with a flat grind, a handle length coming in at 4.45 inches, a handle thickness at 0.53 inches, and a handle width of, again, right about 1 inch down in this area. So as you can see, it's obviously going to get a lot slimmer and a lot less than 1 inch up in this area. We have a handle material of titanium. As you can see, this one here is bronzed in a very nice way, which we'll talk about here a little later. We have a locking mechanism of a frame lock, right hand only, tip up carry, a weight coming in at 5 ounces. So this guy has a little bit of weight to it, but not too bad at all. A price of $250. Now, let me emphasize $250 for a knife made in the USA and a small batch. I'm going to consider this small batch. And the reason I call it small batch is this is not your Spyderco Paramilitary 2 made in Golden, Colorado in mass numbers. This is a smaller batch made from a smaller company out of San Diego, California. Toor Knives in San Diego. So you have that California labor cost and all the expenses that come with doing anything in California. And you have American made with quality components coming in at $250. That's impressive. That's very, very impressive, and definitely a highlight of this knife right here. Another highlight is the packaging. Let me set this aside and pull the packaging out here. I really like what Toor Knives is doing here. This is very nice packaging. And what does a white square box remind you of? Yeah, Chris Reeve. I thought that was pretty cool. This definitely, when I saw this box, I thought, oh wow, he's okay, they're really upping their game here. They're trying to play with the big boys. So as you can see, you open it up here, a little magnet in the flap here that opens up to where you have a sticker, very nice cloth with their brand on it, which is always pretty cool. And you got kind of a little card. It's guaranteed for life, of course, with all the basically the same regular stipulations of everyone else, you know, just from structural defects and whatnot. And it also comes with some of this lube, frog lube, lubricant protectant. I've never used this stuff, and I probably won't. I feel like I haven't opened it. I probably should, but it feels a little stiff. So I don't know if this is something more like the Chris Reeve style of lubricant, to where it's obviously not nano oil or KPL or anything like that. But very nice presentation. So very nice to see that. But like I always say, you cannot have nice packaging and sacrifice material quality for your nice packaging. Now, they're not doing that. So we're gonna go over that right now, and let's start with the blade. Because, before we start with the blade, let's do some size comparisons. This is my first time back from honeymoon, guys, making a video. I'm a little wonky. I'm getting back into the groove of things, so bear with me. I tell you what, a 2-week honeymoon is amazing, but it is a harsh, harsh slap in the face when you get back to reality. Had a great time. It felt like a month, but boy, coming back, I felt like I got hit in the gut with a bat. It was a little brutal. But let's do some size comparisons. We have a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and we have your Benchmade Bug Out. So as you can see, not a small knife, but not a big knife. Actually is really kind of walking that line with the Paramilitary 2. Very, very close in length to the Paramilitary 2. I wouldn't say the same feeling in hand. If the Paramilitary 2 was a little slim up here, you might be able to compare it because the thickness is similar, but obviously different handle shape, so not too close. But there's a couple good size comparisons. And then one more around here just to get a couple more examples out. We have the TRM Atom, and also, since the packaging kind of had me think of it, the Chris Reeve Sebenza. Now, of course, the Sebenza is a little longer. The Sebenza is a relatively big knife. A lot of people consider it a big knife. And so there's those. So I think now we have a very good idea of just the size of this guy, which is a really good size for me. Really like this size. I like a lot of things about this knife. I don't like everything, and we're going to get to that. But overall, I'm pretty impressed so far. Now, what we have here is a very nice, rather slender drop point blade. And what does this blade remind you of? Because the very first moment I saw this blade, you know what it reminded me of? This guy right here, the Benchmade Griptilian. Do you see it? I mean, you have to see it. The swedge, the grind. The only thing that really separates them is the width of the blade. The Merchant is a much slimmer blade, which is fine. I actually like it every bit as much as the Griptilian. You actually have a little more of a flat grind on the Merchant blade, as you can see up towards the middle half of the blade. There's a little more of a full flat grind going farther up the blade, so that's nice. But definitely reminded me of the Griptilian right off the bat. So, and that's not a bad thing. I love me a good Griptilian. One of Benchmade's best knives ever. But this blade is perfectly centered. Absolutely perfectly centered. No blade play whatsoever. Super solid lockup. So no issues there at all. And now this blade, it's not the sliciest blade, but again, if you read the description of this knife on DLT, this is not made to be an epic slicer. It's made to be an everyday carry cutting tool. And they did a really good job of doing that here. You have a nice sharpening choil. I love the minimal blade branding, and the little blade branding you do have is a really nice quality. It's engraved. It definitely looks engraved. There's some, yeah, it is engraved into the blade. Very nice. It's got the Toor skull with it. It kind of looks like some type of a very minimal compass behind the skull, but very, very sweet. Really like that. A lot of detail in something so little. So that's pretty cool. And then on the back, you have nothing other than USA. And I think this number here, I think that's the number of the knife. Don't quote me on that, but I know I've seen other pictures of this knife on DLT, and I think the one on DLT said like USA 88. So I think this is the actual number of the knife, but don't hold me to that. But there can't be a whole lot of reasons why there'd be different numbers on a blade. But very, very nice aesthetic to this knife. I like what they did here a whole lot. I also really like the jimping on this guy. Now, this is borderline overly aggressive. I personally like it. Some people probably wouldn't, because it really does bite. I mean, it bites into your finger. They didn't really chamfer the sides much, so it's very, very grippy. But I like it. If it was any bigger, if it was spaced more apart, anything like that, I would probably find it to be a little too aggressive, but to me, this is perfect. I mean, my thumb ain't going anywhere. Love this jimping a whole lot. As for the thumb studs, I also like the thumb studs because what they did here, they bite your finger really well without aggravating them. As you can see, try and get these in here really good. They didn't really chamfer any of the milling on the sides here of these thumb studs at all. So you have a very, very crisp bite, and it works really well to slow roll the blade out, and they just feel really good. You get a lot of good traction on your thumb when you go to use these thumb studs. They're placed just right. They're big enough. Very nice thumb studs. And I also like how they anodized them the same color as the handle, so it matches really nice. And it's kind of just a two-tone knife, and I personally love two tones. I like just having those two colors play with each other. You got the bronze, and of course the grayish, whatever kind of gray you want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's a form of gray, a darker gray. Love the way those two work together. One of my favorite pairings of a knife, actually. Really, really good. Going into the handle and ergos. The ergos are great. The ergos are one of the best parts of this knife, and I really do like them a lot. I've always liked a knife that starts off slim and kind of swells at the bottom. They just fit in my hand fantastically, and this is no difference. No real hot spots at all whatsoever. I did notice down here where they have the lock bar relief, they didn't chamfer that, but I don't feel it. I mean, if you feel it, if you go feeling for it with your index finger, you will notice, you're like, oh wow, that's you know, not sharp, but it's a little you know, you feel it, we'll put it that way, but not in your hand, not when you're gripping it and using the knife. And to be honest, that's all I care about. If I have to go to a knife and be like, oh, I feel that, it doesn't feel good, I don't care, because I don't feel it in my grip. So that's what I'm judging this stuff off of. Now, this point was, if this was like pointy and sharp down here and it was digging in my palm, I would be calling that out a little more. But I love this. I love the ergos of this knife. They're very, very, very good. The clip is nice. It works great in the pocket. There's no hot spot with the clip, but as you guys can see, there's a lot of knife sticking out. One of my less favorite things about this knife, one of the drawbacks of this knife, let's be honest, I don't like it that much. I see what they were doing. They were trying to give you a lot of knife to pull it out of your pocket. I just don't think you need that much. You just don't. So there's a lot of ways they could fix that. I'm not going to really go into it, but I don't like how much of the knife is sticking out of the pocket. I don't think a lot of people would. But regardless, you're still getting the pros of really good ergos with that pocket clip being where it is, not sticking up too much. There's a lot, the best thing about a non-deep carry pocket clip is that it takes away so much of the emphasis of any feel there would be on the back of it. A deep carry is obviously going to stick out more at the back, and you don't have that. So it falls right in your hand and you don't feel anything. So I really do like that. I just don't like how high it rides in the pocket. But you know what? It is what it is. There's no getting around it. You're either going to like it or you don't. Really digging the bronze anodization job on this handle. If you look at it in the light, you kind of get some of that oil slick look. Not quite as defined in like patterns you see on like custom anodized jobs or some of the stuff you see on Instagram, but it's very subtle. It's definitely bronze first, but as you hold it in your hand, if you get a little sweat on it or if you move around in the light, you can see those little hints or hues of purples and blues, but it's not too much. It doesn't make the knife look like it's tie-dyed or, you know, like it's purposely going for that. It's very, very subtle, very subtle. And I like that a lot. It really does. It works very well, and it just always gives you kind of a different look, but it's never too much. It's never obnoxious. I've never been a big fan of, what am I thinking of the real colorful anodization jobs where it looks like the rainbow's just exploding on it. Or even like Damascus clips. I've never liked so much color playing back and forth, but I do kind of like something like this, which is it's just very subtle, and the way it hits the light different ways, you see a little other colors. So I think that's pretty cool. I do like that, but it's just a real fine line for me. So for me personally, they kind of nailed this. One thing that isn't ideal about this knife is the lock bar area. Now, it's easy to access. Accessing to close the blade, no issue whatsoever. But what you kind of have is you have a little lock stick because there's no lock bar insert. So you got a little bit of lock stick, but at the same time, you get a little bit of lock stick with a Spyderco swish buoy, and people don't swish buoy, and people don't complain about that too much. So not the end of the world, just probably something worth noting. But the lock bar works great. Like I said, you can access it just fine. And going into the action, the action is unfortunately average at best. It's not bad. It's not a bad action, but what this knife lacks is a nice crisp detint. As you can see, you can thumb flick it pretty good. Actually really good, as long as you got to get used to it. This is a knife, you definitely have to get used to the detint that it has. And I don't know if all knives have this detint. Again, we're talking about small batch knives. Sometimes they can vary a little. I will say it middle finger flicks very well. Little bit of wrist. That's what this knife takes. It's just a little bit of wrist, and the action is decent. It's respectable, but it definitely takes that wrist. You can't just sit here and flip it out with your thumb without moving your wrist at all. Little wrist, flies right out. It's kind of amazing how that little bit of wrist adds so much, improves the action so much. But yeah, the little wrist, you can middle finger flick it, you can thumb flick it, and you can also slow roll it. That works really well. So all in all, like I said, it's not it's more of a Sebenza type action. It's not the glassy smoothness that a Sebenza has, but it's definitely more along the lines of a Sebenza, which is not the end of the world. A lot of people love Sebenzas. But it's also, you're not going to get the thumb flicking action that you have from, say, a TRM Atom. It's just not going to happen. It's just not what this knife is. And that's okay. That is okay. But overall, it's good. I will say, though, I hope they improve this, because I don't know. This is on washers. So should it be on bearings? I don't know. I really like knives on washers. And, Toor it's a newer brand to the best of my knowledge. I've heard of them a little previously before this, but not a whole lot. So they're definitely up and coming. Their stuff's only going to get better. And like I said, so far into this review, as you guys can see, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about this. It's really just the action that I would like to see improved a little. I would like to see the action improved a little. And again, keep in mind, I haven't opened this knife and lubed it up myself or done anything at all. So this is out of the box review. So again, as you can see, once you get it down, it flips out really, really nice. So it really comes down to personal preference and what you want out of the box and what you're aiming to get with the knife you're looking for. But overall thoughts on this guy, it's not perfect. It can use a couple improvements like the pocket clip and do something to help improve the action. I think it would definitely benefit from a little stiffer detent, but I like it. It's a good design, it's made in America, and taking everything into consideration, it's a very reasonable price. I have no issue whatsoever paying $250 for a knife with titanium S35VN, made in the USA. There's a lot of really good things going on here with this knife. That's just a few of them. I also really like the design of this. The design of this knife is a hit for me. I think it's a really good design. But I do hope to see Toor build off this. I hope they continue to make products with, maybe a little better detent, slightly better action, and stay in that $250 price range. Because, guys, I don't think we're too far off in the future. The knife industry is becoming more and more competitive and is growing more and more in popularity within the US, and that's great. Good things are going to come from that. There's a lot of companies doing really amazing things making knives within the US. Monterey Bay Knives has a lot of good stuff coming out. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on Toor. This is fantastic. For $250, again, this is a great knife, and it's one that, even with the minor flaws that I've pointed out, I would recommend definitely taking a look at this if you want a more unique knife that a lot of people that you don't see in everyone's pocket, that's made in the USA with quality materials. Definitely one I would recommend right here. So check this out. I'm going to have this linked in the description of this video below to DLT to check out all of Toor's knives, as well as just this Toor Merchant. Let me know what you guys think of this. What do you think of the combination of quality materials, price, packaging? Toor's doing it really well, and I think they're just going to get better. So keep an eye out for them. Let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and until the next one, I'm out.